These days, probably the biggest game changer ever for PixInsight has been released and nobody's talking about. But we're talking about it right now in this video. Hey, this is Fear into Space. I'm Sascha from Switzerland, so grüezi miteinander, and thanks for watching my channel. So let me first tell you what this game changer is, why it is so important, and then I will show it to you on my PC. And to understand what it is, we have to look a few weeks back where a new script was introduced in the momentary reference software when it is about processing astrophotography. And no, the reference is not PixInsight anymore. I think already a long time this has gone. But funny enough, at the moment, it's Serial where the cutting edge stuff is happening. And the SETI Astro Suite, but not PixInsight. And a few weeks ago, in Serial, a new script, modernly written in Python, another thing completely impossible in PixInsight, was released called Veralux Hypermetric Stretch. And in the Serial community, since then, this is really the big discussion point. And now these days, somebody recreated for PixInsight the script. And since yesterday, I'm playing with it. And you will find the repository link to play yourself with it down in the description below. And as we will see later, from my perception, we are not 100% there yet where Serial is. There's still a little bit some issues with the script, which is no wonder because it has to be developed in an ancient language of JavaScript. But at least to some extent we're already blessed with it. Now what is Verilox Hypermetric Stretch? In principle, it is kind of GHS on steroids. And a big difference to GHS is that it does the whole thing automatically without you having to go through 6-7 iterations with GHS. But on the other side, and that's really the crazy part, is that it does not diminish any saturation of the color information that is within the linear picture. And while this sounds subtle, when you will see the result, it's not subtle at all. It's like day and night, and it will take some time for you to get used to that. And so why is this such a huge game changer from my perspective? On one side, it is the first time that you have a fully automated stretch script which produces great results. It is way more advanced than SETI Astro Statistical Stretch, for example. With the Statistical Stretch, you still have to figure out how much the Statistical Stretch script should stretch. With Verilox, it does it automatically. Second of all, from the stretch mechanics, it is way superior than any other script until now, even more superior than GHS. Which means theoretically you will not have to extract stars anymore. Because Verilox can distinguish between stars and the nebulosity and stretches everything to the right extent without blowing anything out. That's a huge thing. So think about it. You practically can stretch with a push of a button, and you can stretch it perfectly so that each part of the information is at its right and best level. And it actually takes away the removal of the stars. These both things together make your workflow so much faster. And when you see how many people have real issues still with stretching, this will make things so much easier also for beginners. But now comes this second component, and that's the saturation. And this is really mind-blowing. Because you might remember that some people say, SPCC, it's not really a big thing. I don't see any difference before or after. And a lot of people still feel that the stars are not really that colorful. And that is all because until now our stretching solutions kind of sucked. A lot of the color available in the linear version was simply erased by stretching, diluted. When now suddenly all this color is retained, your first instinct when you play with it will be that this is overcooked, this looks horrific, and it's way too saturated. And you can still have this notion and you can still tone it down. But in reality, that's the color information that is within your picture. And suddenly stars are colorful. So from that point also, I feel this is a game changer. Because once all the little quirks and issues with Verilox have been ironed out, and everybody is actually stretching with Verilox, the pictures we will see on Astrophotography, on social media and so on, will look fundamentally different than what they look right now. And from that point, we're really at a breaking point where astrophotography will change. And let's go now to my computer and I will show you exactly what I mean. I will show you the advantages and the ease of use of Verilox, but I will also show you where there are still, I believe, some issues with it which have to be ironed out, at least in the PixInsight version. Okay, welcome to PixInsight and welcome to Andromeda. So all these pictures that I will show you today and that we're working with today, they went through the same process. I gradient corrected them and I run them through SPCC, and that's all. No exterminator whatsoever. So minimal interference, but that's actually what is needed. SPCC is kind of mandatory for Verilox as it actually uses this as a reference. And that leads actually to one question which I could not yet answer. What do you do when you work with SHO? Because then you cannot use SPCC. So I will answer this question in another video. So these are all either RGB or HOO pictures. So with that it works, definitely. So this here is an RGB picture and that's not stretched yet. So we switch out lights. Now I go to script. I go to Killer Chow's scripts and here we have it, Veralux hypermetric stretch as stated. Link you find in the description below. So when you open the script up, you have a few choices to make. First of all, processing mode, ready to use aesthetics. So this is what you're usually going for. This is a one-click stretch and everything's done. Scientific is like a half-finished stretch, so more post-processing needed afterwards. Sensor calibration, if you know your sensor, like the IMX571 which I use, the most prominent, even the C-star is down here in there. Oh, here we have Narrowband SHO, that's interesting, I just see that. So let's go, in this case, with the IMX571. And now comes the interesting part here, number 2, stretch engine calibration. So here I have the target background, it's by default 0.2. If I prefer to have it a little bit darker, I can go here a little bit back to 0.15 or so, and at the moment we'll leave it. Project B, you can always leave where it is. So in principle, all you have to do is press this button here, auto calculate log D. Just takes a second. And now you have here the right stretch amount in there. So no more manual moving around. It calculates it itself and it knows what's good for you. Below here, auto core recovery. Usually you can leave this where it is. Saturation amount, that's the interesting part now. You see 0.9, so we already moved the saturation back from 1, which means all the color that's contained in a picture we're using. We're going a little bit down by default, but you will see in some cases how much color this is. So in principle, that's already everything. Nothing more to do, just click process. So there's a few things now to talk about. First of all, look at Andromeda, how nicely it is stretched. This is not a million-hour exposure, so that it's not so intense. That's absolutely okay. This was a test shot sometimes I used. But actually, if we look at it a little bit closer, that's very nicely stretched. And the information that's available is nicely visible. The other thing that we see are the stars. And also zooming in here, you see the intensity of the colors, which is massive. But you also see that most stars are blue. And I don't think this is correct, quite honest. And that's what I meant with that this version is probably not 100% there yet, which for me would be more normal than not, because this is the first version which seems to be have coded in an absolute hurry, so that there might still be some bugs in there or some optimization effort. That's just normal. Everything else would be spooky. So I didn't know, did I make a mistake? I tried different ways with SPCC, but in this picture, I always got to this result. So a little bit of blue shift, we could also deal with that in post, but otherwise, stretching-wise, absolutely cool. But what I really want to do now to show you the insane power this stretching method has is to compare it with simply an auto stretch, which is usually not the worst stretch, right? An auto stretch. And let's toggle. So this is Verilox. This is the auto stretch. It looks ultimative disastrous compared to that. It looks like there's no color in there whatsoever. Looks like a yellowish black and white picture compared to that. And so that's what I mean. This is just one push of a button and you get that here. So absolutely crazy. So as next, let's try this here. Some dual narrowband picture of some nebulosity. So let's see what we can do here. So again, I use ready to use. I go to narrowband HOO. I go again, auto calculate log D. And let's take from the start here the saturation amount a little bit back, and you will see why. And then press process. Okay, and here we go. Now at first you have to get a little bit used to that picture. I had to, especially because you know that already toned the color a little bit down. And still it looks like somebody went rather deep into the paint bucket. But that's the interesting part. That's actually the color, and that's not even all. There's even more color in the information. And if we zoom in a little bit, we see again that actually the information that was available is nicely isolated. It's there. Everything that's available in this picture is there. Obviously, still needs a little bit more post-processing to get it to a right level. Feels a little bit dark now. So let's look at the third example. And that actually is the elephant trunk. And let's look what we get out of here. And you know, if you use that, and then you get this back, you might have a negative reaction. And we'll have to see, because for example, if you look at these stars here, these stars are shining red, which is definitely not good, or should not be. But otherwise, we could say that this is actually quite white, because the red is actually rather diluted here, because there's not so much HA in this area than is here. But actually here, all the color is preserved. So even in the inner circle here, you get a much higher dose of HA than before. And that's why it's so red. And for example, if you look at these areas here where it's here hardly even noticeable that there is some HA, here it's very, very well visible. Still, I feel probably there's still something off with this picture. And that goes to what I said at the start. I think we're not 100% here yet with the PixInsight script, especially color-wise. There might still be some little bugs in there, but on the other side, again, if we look from a stretching point of view, this is beautifully stretched. A little bit of curve adjustments, and it's fine with one push of a button. So in a nutshell, looking at all the tests, I firmly believe that Verilox is the future of stretching, full stop. There's no doubt in my mind. All the tiring, iterative GHS stretching and so on, I believe we come to an end with that. We come to an end that stretching takes about as much time as all the rest of our processing. And I believe that we will see way more colorful stars, way more colorful nebulosity in the future. All we need now is the patience that these guys who coded this script can get all the bugs out and optimize it. Also on the serial side, by the way, just today came a new version out. So also there it's still at the start. So it will probably take a few more weeks, months until this whole thing is optimized, but definitely we're going somewhere completely different than where we were until now with stretching. Hey, I hope you're excited now as I am and you start immediately playing with it. Please leave your experiences that you have in the comments below. Do you also believe that this is a game changer? Are you looking forward to use this stretching method in the future? And if you want to be always the first to hear about things like that, have a look at my Patreon account in the description below. My Patreons always hear it first. And if you want to know how to best post-process your picture after you have stretched it in PixInsight, have a look at my Luminar Neo processing video. See you next time, and clear skies.